our feelings impact our thoughts, or our thoughts impact our feelings, our thoughts impact our actions impact our connections impact our surround. They all have an interplay with one another. And so when you look at all of those 5 pillars and you start peeling back the onion layers, you can really easily, as an individual, start to take back control, because then you start to truly understand yourself.
Welcome back to the Rethink Aging podcast, where we explore science-backed strategies and soul-nourishing wisdom to help you prevent cognitive decline, extend your health span, and flourish in midlife and beyond. I'm Dr. Cindy Libert. I'm your host, and I am honored today to introduce Dr. Ruth Allan, PhD. Ruth is a certified brain health professional. She's a trainer, a havening practitioner. I'm excited to delve into that. She's a high performance coach, and she is the host of a very special podcast called Brain Health, Unchaining Your Pain. She's the founder of the Well-Being Warrior Academy. I love that name. And creator of the Thrive by 85 program. Her passion is helping industry leaders, families, and entrepreneurs boost their brain power and performance by overcoming trauma and unchaining themselves from past pain. I love your mission, Ruth. Ruth, you've been featured in International Business Times and Entrepreneur Magazine, and you've been recognized by Brains Magazine in their global awards for your contribution to mental health. You're a wife, a mom to Lily, and an avid cyclist, mountaineer, and skier. Ruth, it is such a pleasure to have you here. It's a joy. Welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's so exciting to reconnect, because I know you were on my podcast. So
yes.
We had so much fun there. So I'm really looking forward to it today.
Great. Well, me too. And I'd love to start with your story. You have such a unique journey and specialty within brain health. So I'd love to just have you tell your story, what called you to first start serving in this particular way.
Yes, it was quite diverse, really. So my background is program and project management, although I have a PhD in medical imaging and spectroscopy. And I was working in the corporate world as a management consultant, and I was hoping to get the promotion up the next level from manager to senior manager. And everything I thought was going well, but there were subtle problems going along the way. And I had an unexpected miscarriage, which was very traumatic for anybody who's had a miscarriage. And shortly after that, I was put on an unexpected performance review by the firm that I was working for at the time. That was back in October 2016. And as part of the performance review, they told me I had no emotional intelligence. And at the time, I felt like a biological failure because I'd had a miscarriage. And then I felt like an emotional failure. And I spiraled downhill really quickly. My mother's father died by suicide when she was only 6. And I started having very depressive, suicidal thoughts. And I thought, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be having these thoughts. And I also really didn't want to be in the situation I was in. And so I reached out for coaching, first of all, business coaching. But it was really focused on getting me through the performance review, which was intensely toxic culture that I was in, and not addressing the underlying issues that I was experiencing, the trauma, the loss of a child, and the other stuff that I hadn't really been paying attention to in the context of my brain health. And so I realized that through the coaching that I was having, it wasn't enough to look at all of me. Like, I was really in trouble. And so I reached out for high performance coaching, had an emotional intelligence coach, went on an amazing journey. I was really not in a good place, but I went on this amazing journey. And on that journey, I went to the States to the High Performance Academy, discovered
Okay.
Dr. Daniel Amen, who gave the
Amazing. I
talk.
didn't know that. We have that in
Yeah.
common as well.
Yeah, I
Love
took a
that.
colleague with me from a
Mhm.
previous workplace, and we went together, and it was an amazing experience. And I realized that I needed to leave the workplace that I was in, and train as a coach and help others just get out of the rut that I got myself into. And I set myself a mission to become the fittest I've ever been.
Hmm.
I didn't set like a specific tangible goal, just wanted to be the fittest I'd ever been. But I really wanted to get to my optimal weight, I suppose. I had this really old printout from a gym like years and years ago that we'd kept in our little handwritten running log that I wanted to get back to, which was 60 kilograms. I guess it's about 130 pounds or something. I'm not sure, 130 pounds. And anyway, so I left the toxic workplace, put my notice
Good for
in, trained
you.
as a high performance coach. And then I went on this journey, lost 27 pounds in weight. And just at the point that I reached my optimal weight, I went on ski touring with my husband across the French Alps. If anybody has been ski touring, it's amazing, but very arduous.
Mhm.
And just before we went on the tour, which was a 6 days, sleeping in huts, skiing all day up mountains and skiing down them, I said to my boobs started feeling really different. And I said to
Mm.
my husband, I think I might be pregnant. And he said, well, that's not very good timing, is it? And I thought, no, it isn't really. She's about to go on a 6 day arduous expedition.
Amazing.
And anyway, we came back, did the test, and 8 months later, our daughter Lily was born. So that was the
Oh.
first ski trip.
Amazing. Oh, Ruth, thank you for sharing. And I know there's so much more to your journey. I love that you took a super deeply painful experience and challenges that you were having and just really used it to journey into a transformation for yourself and now it's tied to your mission in life. It's very beautiful. I feel like we have a lot of parallels in our
We
journey. Of
do.
course, different stories, different challenges, but lots of parallels, and it's so inspiring to see all that you're doing now. And it was had its roots in a deeply painful
Yeah.
loss.
And it really took me a long time, talking about the pain. So for anybody that's experienced a miscarriage or a major trauma, at the beginning, I was really ashamed, like I was ashamed of the being told I had no emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
So it was really embarrassing because I've got a PhD. So like I felt in deep embarrassment talking about the fact that somebody had even had the audacity to tell me I had no emotional
Mm.
intelligence, which for anybody who knows about emotional intelligence, that is the last thing you would say if you had
That's
emotional
right,
intelligence.
exactly. It's like, how about
But
some coaching in instead of just, criticism in
exactly,
that way?
exactly. And yeah, and then obviously with the trauma, because there were layers of trauma at the time with the workplace environment, I had to you have to bury it because you have
Mhm.
to try and just get on through the day. And with the traditional approaches I was using, because I had no clue about brain health at this time. And that's when when I lost all that weight and met Dr. Daniel Amen, that's when I decided I wanted to become a brain health profession trainer. But I paid no attention to my brain health, like zero attention. I just had grown up thinking I was invincible, like the James Bond where you've got that pen and you click it and it says I'm invincible and everything all blows up. But I was kind of like that person, and it just all came tumbling down. And I realized that I really needed to focus my attention on my brain health. And there were loads of little warning signs. So before I was told I had no emotional intelligence, I went to go and try to join a specific part of the military in the UK. I was already an officer, and I went for a test and I failed the IQ test. So, and I'd already passed it like years ago. And I was like mortified that I'd failed it. But something was wrong with my brain. My brain was totally suboptimal. I had no clue how you needed to nurture yourself to create a baby. You know, you just get told in school, you stick this object in, in this place, and a couple of months like, lo and behold, you'll make a baby. That's just not how your body works. You have to
Mhm.
set the right environment up. And I realized that there were like 5 key things that the firm that I was working for they didn't look at the facts, and that's where my 5 pillars of brain health came out of. And the first of all, they had no acknowledgement of my feelings. So, I was right in the middle of a traumatic miscarriage, and at the time there was no recognition of any grief or anything. You just, keep calm and carry on was the kind of mentality at that time. So nobody checked on my feelings, and I wasn't even checking on them either. The actions that I was taking, so A is for actions, so that I wasn't looking at the actions that were helping me and the actions that were really hurting me. So I was self-medicating with alcohol at the time. I used to get through about half a bottle at night, and I'm sure many people who've been in stressful situations can relate. After the miscarriage, I had to do something to take away, the grief and the trauma I was going through, and that was my coping mechanism, go and have half a bottle. But obviously that wasn't serving me at all. And then my connections. So my connections with myself, I was not living into my authentic self. I wasn't even allowed to show up as my authentic self in the workplace. I was told I was too rough around the edges and that I had to be more of a circle, not an oval. So that was a big warning sign that I was not in the right environment for me personally. And then connecting to others, I was pretty good at connecting to others, but clearly there was some issue there, but that wasn't the full issue. The thoughts that I was listening to, that's T, um, were not serving me. So I didn't have the tools there to manage my internal self-talk. And S is the surroundings. So the surroundings that we are in, and we forget about this, which includes the environment, the culture, and everything else, is how our surroundings influence our brain health and how toxic surroundings can be, and whether that's toxic from a people perspective, toxic from an environmental perspective, toxic from a workload perspective, is we forget about how much that impacts us. And actually, my response at the time, i.e., I was getting really depressed, was just my brain responding to being totally and utterly overwhelmed and overloaded with trauma. And we need to give ourselves permission to be
Absolutely.
okay about that, because that is just our default response to the surroundings that are impeding our brain health. And I didn't really fully appreciate that at the time.
Yeah. Well, Ruth, first of all, I want to share with you a reflection on our podcast when you invited me on your podcast. And I believe you demonstrated superb emotional intelligence. And I felt deeply listened to and heard. And it was actually a really healing time for me to have you hear my journey and the
Mm,
way that you synthesized it and had some insights. It was really beautiful. So you have excellent emotional intelligence
thank you.
in my book. So that's number one. And I would love just if you could recap for us. You were talking about 5 pillars of brain health, and I realized I jotted a few down: feelings, connections, thoughts, and surroundings, but I
And
missed one:
actions. So
actions.
facts, feelings, actions, connections, thoughts, and surroundings. And so I said to myself, you're just not looking at the facts. So when I coach my clients, I say, let's look at the facts. Because it really is the facts. Let's look at the facts about you. And they're all fundamental and easy to remember. So it's being military, we love mnemonics because at every level people need to remember how to do things. So if your child can remember facts, feelings, actions, connections, thoughts, and surroundings, then it's a really great framework to use.
I love that. So, let's go into a little bit of a mini coaching session with, say someone is spiraling, having, maybe imposter syndrome thoughts or catastrophizing about something. Um, how would you help walk someone through this process of looking at the facts? What kind of
Yeah,
questions would
no
you
worries.
ask?
So the first thing was is understanding what they're doing. So that's the actions. So what is it that you're doing? And then so they're catastrophizing. And then
Mhm,
we'll say, well, how does that make you feel?
mhm,
And what are the emotions that bubble to the surface? So the first thing is understand the emotions that are attached to the actions you're taking. And are those emotions helping you or hurting you? And this is what Dr. Daniel Amen says, but he more talks about actions, but we have to focus on our emotions. Are our emotions actually moving us towards something that we want or calling us away from something that we don't want? So the first thing is to understand the emotions that are running. And when you think about your brain, your deep limbic system, your emotional centers of your brain are the ones that drive our emotions. And that's what our brain has been running on for millennia. So unless you check in with them, you're not necessarily aware of the emotions that are your default modus operandi, i.e., your operating system. So although we might intentionally want to be joyful and happy, and when you actually just take time to write three words down that define how you feel right now, often it's not at all what you want to be. And so every action will have an emotion, because emotion is just a signal for you to move towards something or away from something. So it's a signaling system that causes us to do something. So when you understand what the signal is that causes us to do something, you can interrupt the signal. That makes sense?
mhm.
And
Absolutely. I love that.
emotions are transient, so they can come and go.
Mhm,
So it takes about 10 seconds to turn on our prefrontal cortex. So in order to connect with our emotions in a logical way, we have to pause, stop, and reflect because we're not cognitively aware that they're happening. So it's the pause, stop, and reflect. So that's the first thing, is take the time to connect with your emotions. And then it's to understand what is behind those emotions. So what's driving the emotions that you're having? Get curious, not furious with them. Some people get really angry, they're angry. No, they do, don't they? I'm so angry, I'm angry. And it's like, well, where does your anger come from? You know what's causing you to get angry, write it down. Understand what's behind it. And you might have to peel back onion layers, because you might not even know, because it could be past trauma. So often, in order to unravel our operating system, we have to understand our history. In the same way that a computer is run, we have to understand what upgrades have happened to our
mhm,
computer. So
mhm.
we have to understand the software that's been programmed on our computer, and that happens often very early on in childhood. And so it's understanding what those operating systems are, and then deciding whether that software is still serving you, or if you personally need to do an upgrade on the software and how you want to do it. Because it might be a different way to do it for different people, because the software's written differently. So
Yeah.
everybody's software has got a different way of writing, isn't it?
I love
But
that. Do
our
you
brains
need
are
it?
unique. So
Do
this
you
is why therapy doesn't work for everybody,
Mhm.
because people have written their software differently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I love
So
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, so that like I know I've just like focused on feelings, but it's
Mhm.
understanding the connection. So they all do a dance, all these 5 pillars do a dance with each other.
Mhm.
So our feelings impact our thoughts, or our thoughts impact our feelings, our thoughts impact our actions impact our um connections, our connections impact our feelings, our surround, they all have an interplay with one another. And so when you look at all of those 5 pillars and you start peeling back the onion layers, you can really easily, as an individual, start to take back control, because then you start to truly understand yourself without lots of, very theoretical concepts. This is very kind of basic grounding concepts that everybody can grasp and know what to do about. So that's the 5 pillars in a nutshell, really. So we did one tend to do one pillar per session, and so otherwise you just get overwhelmed with understanding your operating system.
Well, I love that. What a useful structure framework for helping people. I I deal more with symptoms of the body. Of course, emotions play into medical care
Absolutely.
as well, but I really love how you zeroed in on how feelings are signals. Same with our physical symptoms, whether it's,
Yeah.
heart palpitation or indigestion or
Well, it's a
diarrhea.
feeling, isn't it?
It being
Ultimately, it's a
expressed.
physical
Yes,
feeling.
exactly.
Yeah.
I
That's
love
telling
that.
you to do that something is off,
Mhm.
or on, depending on whether it's moving you towards or away from something.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I know that you have a lot of tools in your toolkit. Talk to me about havening. I think it's such a fascinating concept and really plays into helping people deal with trauma and challenging emotions.
Yeah, no worries. So um, as part of my journey, I'll just introduce where I came about it. So as part of my journey, I had positive psychology, which I really didn't get on with, to help me with past trauma. And it was given to me by the firm that I was working for that subsequently left. And the lady was trying to get me to talk about my miscarriage, which I couldn't talk about. It's too painful. Anyway, when I certified as a brain health professional trainer through the Edmund Clinics, I said to one of the psychiatrists there, Dr. Sandy Lowe, I said, what tool should I train in that's like the tool to learn? And he said, you have to do havening. I'd never heard of it. So I completely ignored it because I was busy with other things, and parked it. And I thought, oh, havening, never heard of it. Sounds interesting. I'll go back and visit one day. Then my dad passed away and I witnessed his death. So he had a sudden heart attack in the hallway. We had to turn off his life support machine. It was very traumatic. My mum witnessed it, all a bit messy.
Mhm.
And I was very traumatized by that. And I can talk about it now. I could talk about the whole detail now. But at the time, I was having to focus on my mum because she had to do CPR with him.
Mhm.
And the neighbours got involved in all sorts. And I couldn't really focus on myself. Big tension on my mum to help her through the traumatic experience. But I was finding myself crying all the time, pretty much every day. And like nearly a year went by and COVID happened. So my dad died in September and then COVID kicked in the following March. And I thought I need to get some help because this is ridiculous. Like I was just a mess pretty much every day. So I reached out to one of the trainers and said, hey, could you just tell me about havening and can I have a session? I'm really interested to learn more. I've got nothing to lose. At one session, I went from a distress rating of 7 out of 10 to 2 out of 10 in just one session. And within a week, I could talk about my dad's death. And I was like, this is mind blowing. I have to certify. So the question is, what is havening? So havening is a psychosensory technique that uses the power of human touch to generate calming delta waves in your mind. And we all have this superpower. Everybody has a superpower built into them, where even if you don't have limbs, people can activate it by touching your skin. So we all have this inherent superpower. And what happens is when you have a baby, the first thing you want to do to help them emotionally regulate themselves is give them a cuddle, because that's what helps babies emotionally regulate. And it's this physical contact and stroking. And you might find, if you're a parent, your child struggles to go to sleep at night, you might stroke the side of their face and just go, it's all right. Or you might find yourself at work and it's getting really stressful. You bury your head in your hands. You go, oh no, like that. You are naturally activating your ability to generate these delta waves in your mind. So there's 3 ways to do it. There's one way is you wash your face. So you stroke your face like this. The second way is you give yourself a hug. And the third way is you wash your hands. And they all generate delta waves in your mind. Now, delta waves are generated when you have deep sleep. When you actually do this generates more delta waves above your baseline level. And you get different volumes of delta waves depending on where you touch. But it all works, those 3 areas. And when you have a trauma, like my dad's death, your brain sends very high frequency gamma waves into your amygdala, which is your fight or flight response part of your brain. And these very high frequency gamma waves, what they do, to see the ring on my finger, what they do is they plug an AMPA receptor. So think this is an AMPA receptor onto the surface of your brain cell. And that acts as a short circuit. So whenever you need to escape something or flee for something or fight something, because it's a survival technique, you can do that straight away. And that's what happens when you experience a trauma. A trauma tends to be the event has some meaning associated with it that makes you want to flee because you think there's a threat to your life or there's a threat to your existence in some way. It doesn't have to be your life, it could be your status. There's some inescapability about it, and the landscape in your mind is vulnerable at that time. So event meaning landscape and inescapability. So this is a high frequency gamma waves. When you apply havening, what it does is it sends these really slow frequency delta waves to the same neuron. And you activate this AMPA receptor by bringing the thought, the experience to the forefront of your mind. You don't have to talk about it. You just have to think about it. And if you can't think about it, you have to feel it, going back to how you feel it in your system, in your body. So that then activates these AMPA receptors and they start kind of vibrating, shall we say. With the delta waves, it sends different chemicals to your brain cell. So it sends chemicals like GABA and oxytocin and other chemicals. And what that does is that unglues these AMPA receptors that have been plugged onto the surface and it puts it back into your brain cell. So you now no longer have this outflow that you previously had. So you've unchained those signals. So you've broken those signals so you can unchain your pain, basically. And you can break that communication channel between what you saw, how you felt at the time, and the outflow. So let's look at the outflow. So you have a cognitive outflow, the memories associated with this experience, an autonomic outflow, which is how your heart racing, sweating, palpitations, that sort of thing. You have a somatosensory outflow. You might feel like you're choking, or you might have butterflies in your stomach or anything like that. And then you have an emotional outflow. These are the feelings that you attach to the experience. Could be extreme sadness, like it was in the case of my dad, extreme anger, it could be anything. So all of those elements get broken when you break this connection. And that allows you to down-regulate your brain very quickly and basically reprogram your memories. You can literally retrain your brain and retrain your memories and remove them. You can literally rub them out. And it's amazing.
I love how accessible and empowering that is, because it's something that people can do on their own, bringing
Exactly.
traumatic memories to the surface and literally just stroking yourself. Of course, when you're dealing with complex trauma, it certainly can be helpful to walk through it with someone trained in it, a guide. And I know you do that for people
Yeah, so I wouldn't encourage people to bring trauma to the forefront of their mind
Okay.
if by themselves, because it can be very traumatic to decode it, and there's lots of different ways you have to do it. But if you're stressed from a stress perspective, so somebody cuts you up on the motorway or the highway, then you can literally hold the steering wheel safely and then have on one arm and down-regulate your stress response. And with children, if they're distressed from the day for whatever reason, as long as it's not trauma-related, you can do that as a parent with your child. You can do it with your partner. You can do it together. But just please don't do it if it's a trauma, unless you're with a practitioner.
That makes sense, and I love that you had shared that you can do this with children and just tell them to take the stress and just go out the tips of their finger. And
Absolutely, yeah. My daughter learnt it when she was 2. So she was invited to a havening conference at 2 years old to demonstrate havening, and you can do it with your child to music. So the main thing is, if they're activated from stress, that you use a distraction technique. So the distraction technique could be anything like singing or listening to music or going to your favorite place in the world. For a child, it's really easy. You can use a toy, so they can haven a toy or an animal if you've got a pet. That's why equine therapy is so great, because you're literally havening with the animal, using your hands to generate those delta waves. So you can do it so many different ways. You don't have to do it on yourself. You can do it on an object, and it will still work. And it's great to teach children. So I have a program called Teach Your Family Havening. So it's Havening with Lily, Lilly. And you can teach your family, and there's some little exercises.
I
You can
love that.
do.
We'll have to put the link to that in the show notes. That's so beautiful. After you had shared that with me recently, I have helped one of my daughters with this, so it's brilliant. Thank you,
Oh no,
Ruth.
it's amazing. Honestly, it should be like standard training for
It should
parents,
be.
because we all can do it, and we all do it, don't we? When we're parents,
Mhm.
when we've got little babies, we just do it naturally anyway. If you're a kind parent, it's just we don't realize how powerful it is.
Well, Ruth, many of our listeners are actually high achieving professional adults that are wanting to, stay sharp as they age and take care of their brain. In your experience, what are some of the most overlooked factors or things that either help our brain or harm it in some way?
I think the most overlooked factors are our biomarkers. So going back to the practice that you have, Cynthia, I think doctors in the main fail to understand the deficiencies that people are experiencing, that is expressing itself in symptoms such as depression or symptoms such as anxiety, which is actually nutritional deficiency related. I think that's the biggest thing at the moment, because our food system has changed. So 50 years ago, there were 4 times more nutrients in the vegetables, many vegetables, than what we consume today, because we're in a desert ecologically. And I think we underestimate or underappreciate, particularly clinically, the huge impact that deficiencies can have on symptoms. So one of the things that I see very frequently is a vitamin B12 deficiency. And this can show up in
Same. Mm.
a multitude of different ways, such as heart palpitations, are very common, is what I tend to observe. And that's often doctors dismiss it, and they don't even bother to do a B12 check. And it's part of the Parkinson's pathway. It's vital for cognitive protection in the context of cognitive decline. And B12 and omega-3 work synergistically. I'm not sure I've got the right name. So there's like a symbiotic relationship between the two. And so you have to make sure that your omega-3 levels, which you get from fish, but we're not eating as by any stretch of the imagination as much fish as we used to. And that's one of the reasons we think our brains grew. Our brains are actually now shrinking. So they're much smaller than they were a couple of thousand years ago, when our diet was mostly fish. Is that we are just not getting the nutrients that our brains are designed to get at the volume that they need to get it at. And that is triggering a huge problem that isn't being addressed because people aren't being tested to establish what the problem is. The other one, of course, is sugar
Uh-huh.
and alcohol.
Yeah.
So sugar is a massive, factor in terms of inflammation and can show up in a multitude of different ways. It restricts blood flow to the brain, and it's being consumed in vast quantities by children who are creating addictive dependencies on sugar, which then creates addictive dependencies on other items as well. So I think because our environment, our culture has shifted so much over the last 50 years, and particularly the last 20, with the advent of devices that we don't even know the impact that it's going to have, but we already have awareness of how damaging it is. Those are like the fundamentals, and then I think the things that we really don't talk enough about, and there's still not enough research out there, but there's high evidence as to how it impacts the blood-brain barrier, is EMF exposure. So I know you and I are talking on a computer, but understanding the impact of electromagnetic frequencies from Wi-Fi and 5G
No.
on not only you, because we're clinicians, functional medicine practitioners in the UK, we're noticing an increase in brain tumours when people are holding phones too close to their ears, although this is all being suppressed naturally by the telephone companies. But we need to protect our kids in the schools and in the workplace. We need to protect our work employees because we're all being massively exposed to electromagnetic frequencies that we were never exposed to. We're never designed to be exposed to historically, and we still don't truly understand the long-term impact that's going to have on our health and well-being. But we do know that high EMF exposure makes your blood-brain barrier a bit more leaky, and that makes you more susceptible to insults on your brain, so attacked by viruses or bacteria. So it's really important that we don't just look at the coaching that we just talked about, but we look at the whole system and how the system is working from a biological perspective as well as a software perspective, shall we say.
Well, Ruth, you're preaching what I do. All the things, testing. I test omega-3 fatty acids on every single patient. I check that level, and vitamin D and magnesium levels and B12 and folate. So many things that we need to address to
Oh, I
protect
know.
ourselves in this modern world. How are you living this out? You have work that you're doing, putting out in the world. You're a wife and a mom and balancing a lot of things. What sort of steps and tricks have you learned to incorporate healthy habits into your life?
So I would say I am deliberately. I have my phone in my bedroom. I'm going to be so very honest here. I have my phone in my bedroom, but I have it away from my bed.
Mhm.
And I turn my Wi-Fi off and I turn my Bluetooth off at night.
Good for you.
I consciously we don't have any TVs in our bedrooms. So there's only one TV in the house and the office is for computer work. My daughter doesn't have a computer in a room and I will not let her have one. I focus on minimizing screen time with her and always seek to turn the Wi-Fi off when it's not in use. And from a 5G perspective, I do not have it on my phone. So I've deliberately turned 5G off on my phone. So that's what I do from an EMF perspective. From a personal perspective, in terms of my thoughts and my feelings and the facts thing the facts framework that I talked about, I'm very much more attentive to my feelings and able to check in on them more than I ever have been able to. And because of that, and with havening, and I do that if I need to, I'm able to down-regulate myself much more quickly. So I use havening with my daughter often if she's struggling with sleep at night. We will do that. Nutritionally, we all take a multivitamin every day. We all take vitamin D, all take magnesium, make sure that our levels are optimal as best we can with omega-3 as well. My daughter takes all of those things plus a probiotic. Every morning we all take probiotics to ensure our gut health is good. Eliminate gluten and mostly dairy. I still have cheese, but not that much. So try and eliminate gluten from my diet because I'm definitely not tolerant to gluten, which I didn't realize. I used to have massive sinus issues, always on antibiotics. And since eliminating in the main gluten and dairy from my diet, I've not been on any antibiotics since since
Congratulations.
2016.
That's a great revelation.
So it truly works. And the same with my daughter. When my daughter was born, she was born by C-section. I spoke to a nutritionist through the Amen clinics, and she said, "I'll put her on a probiotic," because she kept on being put on. She had was in hospital with gastroenteritis. We ended up being on antibiotics, and I was like, I just don't want this for my daughter. This was when she was first born, 2018. And so from the age of 1, she went on a probiotic. She has not had any antibiotics. She's not
That's
ill. She
fantastic.
doesn't take a day off school. She honestly, it makes a massive difference. And if you're a working parent and your child is being sick, if you're not giving them nutrition that they need because they're not getting it from their diet, a simple multivitamin that's quality and vitamin D3, not the D2 rubbish that they sell in the shops, can really make a big difference. I'm focusing on a child's diet, so I'm very restrictive with my daughter on sugar. I don't say, no, you can't have anything, because that's not like the real world, is it?
Sure.
But if we buy some sweets, she'll have little five sweets. She doesn't ever get through a whole pack of anything. She's restricted to 5, and she's cool with that. So she knows what's good for a brain and bad for a brain. And she makes an informed decision, and she's only 6. So
Super.
we can empower our kids to make informed decisions by leading and role modeling the way. It's not difficult. If you don't want your child to use the phone, tell her why they shouldn't be using the phone. If you don't want them to be on the computer, tell them why they shouldn't be. It's just education that we need, and we need to start, from ourselves first. Kids are incredibly intelligent, but if we don't teach them the right habits, the right tools, then they're as oblivious as the next person. So we have a right to do that for our kids. I think it's our duty.
Well, Lily is a very fortunate little girl to have you for her mom and being an advocate for her. And I so agree. Children crave boundaries, and they are listening. And I've raised my girls the best I can, with educating them about healthy eating principles and fitness, and it's been really gratifying to see them come into teenagehood and then actually say, "Thank you, Mom. I appreciate, the hard work that you do with giving us good food and teaching us about this." So it's not always easy. They may push back and feel, deprived or restricted at times, but it is worth it in the end. And hopefully you'll have the same experience one day
No,
when they're.
I'll give you an example. I
Mhm.
absolutely agree. So the other evening, my daughter was saying, "I don't feel very well." And I said, "Oh, I'll have a drink of water." And her dad has juice, a squash, don't know what it's called in the States. So it's diluted orange juice, not
Okay.
actually freshly squeezed squash. And she said, "No, Daddy, I don't really want that. It's not good for my brain.
I love that.
I want water. I don't want to. I want water." And
That's
that's it.
fantastic.
And it's the same with Coca-Cola. Dad drink. I can't stop my husband from, it's nice to have habits. He likes to drink Coca-Cola, but she said, "No, I like the taste, Mummy, but it's not good for my brain. So no, I don't want any." So you can do it. It's so easy. We think it's difficult. It isn't. We just have to take the time and inform them what is good and what is healthy, and let them make informed decisions.
Well, Ruth, I love that. So inspiring. Let's say, one of our listeners, they're middle-aged and just kind of feeling overwhelmed with all the check boxes that are out there for healthy living. If someone is just starting their journey, what sort of advice would you give them about small, practical steps that they can start today, this week, working on their brain health and their health span? Where would you tell someone to start?
I would aim low. And the reason I say this is people think they have to do everything at once, but we work by gratification through achievement. So if you set your bar too high and say, "Oh, I'm going to give up this, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this," you're just not going to manage it all. And then you'll beat yourself up and you'll fall off the wagon, and then it'll be too difficult to get back on because you've put too many things in your wagon and anyway. So just do one thing that is easy to do. So an easy thing to start with, if you haven't already done it, is just give up caffeine. So take caffeine out of your coffee, or give up a fizzy drink. Just give one thing up. Don't try and tackle everything. Just do one thing and do one thing well, and be consistent with it. It took me, when I was pregnant, and I know all those pregnant mums out there, I really used to love caffeine, and I had a headache for a week, but after that, amazing. It just is one thing, because nobody climbs Everest in a day. Well, some people have, but you don't do it one step. You have to take thousands and thousands of little steps to climb a mountain. So don't try and bite it all off in one go. One simple step, one little schlep to your next goal. And people talk about SMART goals. When you are overwhelmed, it doesn't need to be smart at all. It just needs to be focusing on one thing. That's it. And just do that one thing consistently and celebrate it. "Oh, I didn't have coffee today. I feel great." And when you start realizing that when you stop doing something, or you start doing something and it gives you a positive feeling, going back to what we talked about, feelings, connecting your actions with your emotions, you are more attached to do something. So the reason we sometimes can't do stuff is because there's no emotional attachment to it. So it's really important you celebrate your successes, because that gives you some emotional attachment to the physical feeling that you're experiencing. So you have to connect the emotional feeling to the physical one. That then parks it in your memory, and that then allows you to keep doing it because your body wants it. Okay, so you will keep doing it because you're emotionally driven to it, because it's pulling you. It's a signal to do something, move forward in life. So emotionally attach yourself to the action that you're doing. The reason why I say this is so important is when I used to teach kayaking as a kayak instructor, when you teach yourself to stop falling over, you put your hand up naturally as a human. That's what you were designed to do. You're designed to put your hand up, stop yourself falling over. When you're in a kayak, if you put your hand out to stop yourself falling in, you fall in, because it's not a paddle. There's not the resistance there to stop you falling in. And that's what happens when you first start learning a new stroke. When you learn your new stroke of doing a low brace, is what it's called, you're using the big paddle that acts as a support on the water. You can retrain your brain in 5 days to do that. That is an autonomic response where you put your hand out, you can retrain it in 5 days to do something different. Why? Because you are emotionally attached to a better outcome.
To not
Okay?
falling off the boat.
You're not falling in. Yeah. And we'd probably do it quicker if it was really cold, as long as you weren't like traumatized by the cold. So you can do it really quickly. We talk about on average 66 days to create a new habit. That's probably because people are not emotionally attached to building that new habit. Create that emotional attachment, make it easy, and keep it consistent. You don't just do one paddle stroke and learn it. You have to practice. So consistency is key, and then you'll be able to change your brain and change your life.
Ruth, this has been so amazing and really inspiring how much hope we have in the ability to shift our brain through neuroplasticity and these simple just awareness, the framework that you gave us for checking out the facts. And I think that is really a missing piece in people's health. So thank you so much for highlighting that. I'm going to re-listen to our conversation and take some more notes for myself and to share with patients. So thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
all that you do. I'd love for you to share ways that our listeners can get in touch with you and find out more about your work and maybe consult you as well.
No worries. So you can come and visit me at ruthmaryallen.com on my website. So go to my website and you can find out about the services I offer. If you want to learn about the online program I have, which is called Thrive by 85, go to thriveby85.com and you can learn more about that there. Or just connect with me on social media. I'm super active on LinkedIn or Facebook. Just look me up. You'll find me on the internet through Google search. I'd be more than happy to connect with people and I normally do a free 15-minute consultation. But if you want a deeper dive, then you'll be able to find out how you can do that on the website.
Super. Well, thank you so much, Ruth. Let's keep in touch. It's been great to reconnect with you.
Oh, same. Likewise. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode of Rethink Aging, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone you love. For more episodes and highlights from the show, you can check out more videos right here and here. I also invite you to join the Rethink Aging community at caringforthebody.org, where you can find more resources on how to better protect your brain, strengthen your body, and live with purpose. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next episode.